we're here to pay tribute to the new #1 album in New Zealand, which is, of course, this guy here.
Yeah,
and
astonishing.
How does that make you feel 40 years later?
Well, kind of bemused, really. I've got fond memories of that time, but I would never have expected it to, 40 years on to become a #1. Mind you, it's incredible what a bit of promotion can do. I mean, a bit of effort and expenditure from the record company. Plus, it's a good record as well. And there's probably a whole generation or two of people who haven't heard the record, and, they've got to know about it now. And I guess there's a bunch of people buying it who haven't heard it before, but have sort of responded to the promotion, the great promotion that Warner's have done, and also the fact that it sounds really good now that I've remixed it, I think. Right. And also, there'll be a bunch of older people who have got a certain nostalgia for it,
Right,
who'd like to get the new copy, the new remix, yeah.
Yeah. So whose idea was it to remix it and reissue it? Was it the record companies or yours?
Well, the record company, we all knew that the 40th anniversary was coming up, and the record company as well. And they contacted me, and I said, well, they said they were going to do the job on it, to re-release it for the 40th. And I said, right now, it's time for a remix. It's time to spruce it up a bit and to get it sounding a bit better. Because I've been doing what I often do. Is go onto Spotify and listen to stuff and compare it with the original CDs or the original albums. Yeah. And very often they sound, or just about always, and they sound like somehow they've deteriorated or changed.
They sound flat. I noticed.
They sound flat, and they sound kind of, I don't know what they do. There's obviously some digital process that, in the uploading to Spotify or whatever the platform is, that the material goes through. Yeah. And it degrades it, I think. And so I think not only that, but over the years, it's been, as you say, it's 40 years since Split Enz recorded True Colors, and the product's been sold a few times. It's sort of moved around, been passed, from one record company to another. And I'm sure that various, remastering engineers get hold of it and do their thing in an attempt to sort of make it, to brighten it or to make it sound a bit more current or whatever. And I just think over the years it's just been degraded, because I have the original mixes from 1979 actually, and they just sound so much better than what the mixes do on Spotify. So I just thought it was time to sort of bring up the Spotify, and also a chance to fix up some of the irritating things that were in the original mixes as well. Okay. Like so for instance, the fact Noel Crombie's percussion was sadly neglected. He'd recorded a lot of percussion, and for some reason we must have had a thing against percussion in those days, because we left most of it out. So it's now back in.
Right. That sounds good. Well, so just to clarify, this is a true remix rather than a remaster. So you've gone back to the multi-tracks and got everything and listened to everything through and redone it. So I listened to the remaster and your remix. To my ears, the remaster sounded brighter from like 5 years ago.
You're absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, the remaster from several years ago. Oh, yes, I did remaster it several years ago, and that sounds brighter, does it, to you? Yeah,
yeah. And then this one sounds kind of more bottom end to it. But
well, that's interesting, because because the new remix, because I remastered that original one. I mean, sound is such an ephemeral thing, isn't it? It's sort of one day, it's like the same in my studio. One day I'll do a mix and I'll think it sounds fantastic. I'll come down the next morning and listen to it, and I'll go, man, what was I thinking?
Right.
And there's so many different factors, how you sleep, the weather even. I find that when it rains, I find it difficult to mix. It's true.
That's great.
So I've been doing some great mixes in the last 6 months.
Right. That's cool. Well, and of course, it also depends. I listen to a lot of stuff through YouTube clips, so who knows what they do to them as well. But then I went back and listened to the original vinyl, and it's like, it sounds great. So
Yeah.
So what was your process? Did you talk to other band members before you proceeded to remix?
Oh God, no. No, if I'd done that, it would never have happened. It would have been like, oh, what do you want to do that for? Oh, that sounds great the way it is. Oh, you know, like, no, don't do it. It's not worth it, you know.
Right.
So no, I went ahead and did it, and then I told them.
Right.
And that basically, I think I was damned with faint praise from. Oh no, Tim was into it. Neil was sort of like. Neil was a little bit sort of like, I think his attitude was more like, yeah, whatever. Everyone's got the record anyway.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter.
As it turns out, they're getting it again because I mean it's doing really well. So there you go.
Yeah, they are getting it. They're getting it again. Thanks, Neil.
So what was your specifically? What did you attempt? I know you said you wanted to try and bring up the percussion and whatever. So when you went back and listened to those tracks individually, what did you hear? Anything surprise you?
Oh, well, not really, because you know it's 40 years ago, but it seems like yesterday. Right. You know, the recording process, everything was. It's not like it is even for me today. I mean, I like basically people playing together, and I like people playing their instruments, and I like as few click tracks and computers as possible. But having said that, I mean, I spent all day working on computers and with click tracks myself,
right?
Because that's what's sort of become, you know, the norm these days, and it's sort of it's easy to do it that way. But in the tracks, that was, you know, 5 people in the studio playing together, and so there's all that glorious sort of small mistakes and out of time playing and out of tune singing, and you know, little things that make give a record or a song character.
Yep.
That people spend so long trying to sort of sanitize out of songs these days, and so it was quite joyful for me to hear that, you know, and to not, you know, to not go too far and to fix those things up by today's standards. I mean, I did a little bit of fixing up here and there, but I mean, it was just neat to be able to hear us all playing together, because each one of the songs on the album was a performance in itself. You know, yeah. We were playing for David Tickle. He was really probably the first, I guess, he was probably the real, I guess, producer we'd had, but I mean, hands-on. He was in the studio, in the control room with us while right. we were playing, and vibing us while we were there. Because, you know, you get your best performances in front of an audience, and so you want your best performances on your vinyl, and you want to play and try and impress each other and the producer. Yep. So he was our audience, and that's just probably about as good as it gets in the studio, yeah. Without an audience, you know. So it does have that feeling of live performances, and there's not a lot of overdubs. Right. We made the album really quickly.
Right. Yeah. So what was the vibe within the band? I mean, at this point in your career, you'd been through several personnel changes, and of course, the young whippersnapper Neil had joined the band, and he was like 20, yeah. 21 years old. What was all that, from your perspective, is kind of, you know, watching all this stuff happen? What was that like?
Well, it just felt like our time had come, you know. Crest of a wave, the wave was just about to start to break, and we were just about to start surfing down the other side. But it was, you know, I'd been in the band already for 6-7 years, yep. Getting on for 7 years, and we'd done that work, you know, a hell of a lot of hard work, touring, making videos, rehearsing, writing songs, doing all this, basically traveling, having no home, and just doing what a band's activities, what a band does or did back then. And so in that time, we'd inadvertently become a really good band as well, you know. Because we always thought we were a great band right from the beginning, but you know, we'd learned how to play. Neil had only been in the band a couple of years, yeah. So he was just coming into his own as a guitar player as well. Prior to that, he was he was struggling with his electric guitar playing, particularly his lead playing. But at this point, it just felt like everything was coming together and focusing to that one album. And we'd built up a hell of a lot of goodwill in Australia and around the world, in places like Canada, Europe, UK, New Zealand, and even lots of the US.
Yep.
Although we were still very much kind of like a college band there. We were waiting for our break over there, and this record I got You as the lead track sort of became the one that started the process off in the US, even though I think we'd done several tours of the States before this record.
Yep.
This one was the one that was felt like it was starting it off for us,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say you were a college band, because I remember when Mental Notes came out, the US version, I was in university at a college radio station, and I saw the cover and the pictures of you guys, and I was like, oh, what the heck is this? Who are these weird people, and where do they come from? But yeah, by the time True Colors came out, I was working in a commercial radio station, and this was a hit record, and it was just like, you can see the transition between what you guys were before and what you were now. And then you came to my hometown, and you were opening for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on a tour. And I think it was 81.
I remember that tour well.
Yeah, tell me, because I'd love to hear some stories.
Well,
yeah, but anyway, so I think it was 81, if I remember correctly, because I did go to the show in Rochester, New York, and you guys were opening for Tom Petty. So I assume you spent some time on the road with those guys. What was touring like back then with a band like that?
It's all that particular tour is a bit of a blur for me. I think we did a thing with Crowded House. I mean, I was playing with Crowded House later on, and I think I'm getting the two mixed up. But I think I remember that Tom Petty didn't want to give us sound checks. But
that sounds about right.
I just don't remember a hell of a lot about it. I didn't get to know the guys. I think I met him briefly, but that was about it. I think that was about it. There was very, very little to tell. Right,
cool. And so the last time that Split Enz has played together, now correct me if I'm wrong, it was like 2008, was it?
2008 Auckland, yeah.
Yeah, I was there for that one too. So was that a feeling of this, we've kind of come full circle, this is it, we've done everything we're going to do?
No, it's never felt like that. I think from a live perspective, I don't think any of us really want to go out on the road anymore.
Fair enough.
I love the idea of doing the occasional gig. I've always said that, because the guys, it's a very special part of my life and a very special family of people that we have. And of course, we're all off doing different things. And I would never ever say no. Nothing's ever going to happen. In fact, I'm working with Tim Finn and Noel Crombie, along with Phil Manzanera, on a project right now.
Really?
And
that's pretty wild.
It is actually. It's sort of weird. It's a weirdo project. We call ourselves Forensics, and it was just an idea that Tim and I had about old Split Enz material that we felt a certain frustration with the fact that it didn't get much of a hearing back in the early days. Like with albums like Mental Notes, there was a lot of music in there which may have happened sort of for 5 seconds, just a small snippet, which deserved to be in its own right a piece of music. And so little favorite pieces, favorite snippets of ours, and so I went through I think it was just Mental Notes, and I grabbed a whole bunch of snippets and made rhythm tracks out of them, completed songs out of them just by looping them and adding bits and pieces and mixing them up. And came up with a bunch of rhythm tracks, and then sent them off to Tim, and Tim wrote some more lyrics and sang over them, and then we sent it off to Noel after that, and then Phil Manzanera after that, and they both contributed their bits.
Whoa,
and
that's pretty cool.
That's
a big deal.
Well, I think it's quite cool. I think it's really interesting at the very least.
Yeah.
in some ways there's a frustration that we can't go out and play live, because it's, you know, I love playing live, but I think that the live thing has just become one of those things that you would like to do, but it has to be, you know, the circumstances have got to be just right.
Right.
Particularly, you know, it's got to be age appropriate, put it that way.
Yeah, definitely.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. But you mentioned Dave Tickle as being kind of the first real producer that you guys worked with. Obviously, Phil Manzanera you worked with before as producer, and you're still working with him again. So I assume his role was different than Dave Tickle's.
Oh, well, Phil, he was sort of a, you know, sit in the control room and offer suggestions while we were playing.
Right.
We were sort of these wide-eyed, you know, boys from, you know, the South Pacific, sitting in, where was it, Basing Street Studios, when we recorded that album with him.
Yep.
Second Thought. That was Second Thoughts, an album called Second Thoughts. Second Thoughts was essentially just a remake of Mental Notes.
Yeah.
Because we weren't happy with Mental Notes, which is pretty weird when you think about it. But Phil was great, and great guy, and a great friend still. But the band was already then, you know, nobody could tell us what to do, if you know what I mean.
Really?
We knew exactly what we were doing, and our music was just unbelievable, and all we had to do was record it, and then we were going to be superstars. And we learned pretty quickly it's not the way it rolls. But Phil was, you know, he basically just facilitated that record for us, and he didn't have to do a huge amount, to be honest, because we were already playing those songs, you know, they were already written, and we knew we just wanted to get good versions of them on recorded. Whereas with True Colors, it was very much a performance-based thing. We wanted it to be rock and roll, you know.
Right.
It to be, yeah.
That's very cool. I love the fact that you guys are doing this thing. I can't wait. So do you have like a timeline? Have you any idea when this stuff is coming out, this forensic stuff?
Well, we'd sort of like, Tim and I are just now talking about the fact we've got 2 albums up our sleeve, because Tim's also been doing, I have another band which I love playing with. We don't play live, of course. We just play in my room here. And we've written a lot of stuff, and now Tim's contributed to that as well. Yeah. So really there's 2 lots of stuff. There's 2 albums, 2 completed albums sitting there. And I guess, you know, it's one of those things that you have to do. It's, you know, not so pleasant. I self-promotion and selling your product. It would just be nice if somebody could come along and grab both of them and say, yep, I'll take those and I'll market them for you and give them their best shot. But unfortunately, that job falls to us. So that's the next thing.
Right. And of course, Neil is now a member of Fleetwood Mac, bizarrely, to some mind.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Great little band, that.
What's that?
Great little covers band.
Yeah.
Neil
it's getting that way, yeah. Did you see them when they played here?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. You're right. No, it's a great covers band.
Yeah. Well, they play that. It's the same with every band, really. You know, when you play your own material night after night, you end up by feeling like a covers band. But no, every time I hear a Fleetwood Mac song, I just hear bands, you know, I'm being facetious, obviously, but I hear bands around Auckland that I hear all the time playing. And so I don't mean that I don't mean that nastily.
Sure. No, I wouldn't think so.
No.
I mean, let's face it, being in New Zealand, everybody has to get together. We're all too close to each other. You can't start any kind of, you know.
No, you can't.
It's very different.
With any of that. Neil and I have got a healthy competitive edge to our relationship. Yeah, we have. We always have had. I was just that little bit better than him, though.
I'm sure he'd say the same thing.
No, he wouldn't say.
Very good. Well, I've got to say, I'm thrilled to pieces that True Colors is back up at the top of the charts, and
me.
It's pretty fantastic that it's there. I remember realizing when I first moved here, like 25 years ago, I saw Neil and Tim playing with Pearl Jam, and they performed "I Got You" with them at the Super Top or whatever, and just thinking, this is the national anthem, you know. This is
pretty much. I think you've got national anthems when you hear it every time you go to the supermarket.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of about there's probably about 6 or 7 Split Enz songs that I hear at the supermarket regularly. So, you've really arrived when that happens.
Excellent. Well, good luck. I can't wait. Hopefully I'll talk to you again when your forensics things comes out, because
that'd be great, Marty.
I'm really interested in it. I think it's fantastic. But in the meantime, congratulations. Thanks for talking to me. And
thanks for
hang in there.
Yep. Well, I'm trying.